Local news is under siege. Reporters targeted for doing their jobs.
Well-known journalist Gauri Lankesh has been shot dead at her home.
Facts subject to debate.
The pan-India lockdown since March has forced 122 million people out of their jobs.
Lies is spreading faster than truth.
2000 रुपए के हर एक नोट पर NGC यानी नैनो GPS चिप लगा हुआ होगा। साले का खोपड़ी तोड़ साले का।
Quality journalism is in peril, and the stakes for our personal well-being, for the health of our democracy, and for the world are just beginning to be understood.
गोदी मीडिया का राष्ट्रवाद इन दिनों बॉलीवुड को ठीक करने में लगा है।
साफ है कि दाल में कुछ काला नहीं बल्कि पूरी दाल ही काली नजर आ रही है।
ऐसा लग रहा है कि भानुमति का पिटारा यानी पंडोरा बॉक्स खुल चुका है।
किसान संगठनों ने आज यानी 25 सितंबर को भारत बंद किया था।
Stories always come first. For decades, economists assumed that human beings are reasonable actors, operating in a rational world. But Kahneman in 1970 showed that humans are subject to all manner of biases and illusions. So the economists adjusted their models to account for the systematic human quirks. Journalism also needs to awaken. The future of journalism is bright as its purpose and impact. This is the dawn of a new era of journalism. As the world gets complex and new challenges rise, global trust is all-time low, democratic institutions are vulnerable, and freedom and faith is being questioned. The journalists shall rise, simplify, and build impacting narratives. News analytics, data journalism, and multimedia shall be strong tools for the journalism in future as the world converges creativity and technology together. The diversity of newsrooms and remote working practices shall make journalism more omnipresent. First, we have to ask what makes a journalist. We can probably agree that not everyone who writes is a journalist, so there must be some delineation, which means that our foundational definition probably includes some caveats regarding veracity and absence of outright prejudices. What interests me most how journalism is being changed by social media and technology in general. Every few weeks, I run events and I see many of my students and journalists to learn more about a current set of privacy tools. And I make a point that source protection is much harder today than for many during the earlier years. Today, if the government suspects a leak, it can tap the journalist's computer in an attempt to discover the source. And many times it happens. So eventually, the idea is that many times we see journalists and journalism under threat or under crisis. Why does it happen? Is because one has to understand that the veracity and the facts and the credibility of news has to be there. And that's where the communities and consumers and viewers and audiences would come back to us. And I think that is a very important piece for all of us to understand. So if we have hundreds of thousands of blogs online, have they made journalism in traditional sense irrelevant? If we are all reporters, why have newspapers? My guess is that modern reporting relies and will continue to do so on symbiotic relationship between journalists and citizens. Not every blogger is a journalist, but reporters can't ignore the fact that everyone now carries around a relatively high-quality, network-enabled camera in their pockets, the cell phones. No longer is a public and abstract construct, a passive audience to be written at. Today, it has to be an integral part of the news gathering process. The existential crisis that has lasted over a decade due to falling advertising revenues shall be behind, with journalism relying on citizens yearning for good journalism.
News can be influenced by many areas of power, corporate and government. But we believe in being independent of all such pressures, in complete independence.
A new independent model for news is impossible without you.
Unless you pay to keep news free, the independence of the news media is impossible.
Pay to keep news free. Subscribe. Come on, do it. Do it.
The public no longer wants clickbait from newspapers and from TV. Journalism as a product shall be for a social good and not mere content. Tomorrow's journalism will be high quality, investigative, trustworthy and paid for. I see brightest minds, students, professionals are drifting back to journalism like never before. I feel that the respect is already coming back and it would be full flow back soon.